like making some serious money. So at the end of
And Sean, I think you're the perfect person to come on this. So I appreciate you taking the time here to begin with.
Yeah, man. Appreciate the invite, and I'm excited to just, hopefully add some value to some people.
I love it. Awesome, man. Well, let's dive into things here. We always kind of like to start things off with, just telling us a little bit about yourself to get to know you on a more personal level. And considering PPC is your bread and butter, talk to us on why you kind of took that route as a business and why you got into PPC as a whole.
Yeah, dude. So I've been doing PPC for 5.5 years. It feels like 20 because it moves. It's an industry that moves super quick. 5.5 years ago, you had just keyword matches, and it was a simpler platform, and now it's just so complex. So it's been interesting, man. It's been an interesting journey. You have to definitely be curious to stick around, I think. But I've been doing it for 5.5 years. I got into it just by accident, to be honest, because I was doing SEO for a software company, full time. And I was selling on Amazon for a little bit, and I was at a local meetup, and they invited me to do a workshop. And then that's kind of how it got started. People, one thing I kind of learned was a lot of people in the e-commerce space at that time were really good at the supply side, finding physical products, but they weren't good at digital marketing, right? So it was a skill set they lacked. And I was a digital guy. And so they were like, hey, man, let me talk to you about stuff. And so just kind of took it from there, man. Kind of started off working with, early days, it was new brands, people just launching, accounts that were, 5, 10K a month. And then, just took off, long story short, just kind of kept at it. And now, had the pleasure to work with brands just starting, and then high 8-figure brands, soon to be 9-figure brands as well. So worked with hundreds of brands as well. I've done the account management side and then the teaching side as well. And so, yeah, man, it's been a blessing for sure. It's definitely given me a life that I could have never dreamed of. And so I definitely, it's been awesome. And, it's one of those things where, I don't know, man, it's just been cool.
Yeah, man. I appreciate you sharing that. You don't sell on Amazon current state right now. You just predominantly focus on PPC, correct?
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. So what we pretty much did was we kind of rounded the troops. We got everyone to submit some questions that they're kind of wanting to get answers to. So me and Andre are going to shoot off questions over to you. For the people that did ask these questions, if we didn't frame this up correctly, or if you want to add anything in, feel free to just unmute yourself and dive in and kind of probe onto that as well. Okay. First question was, why do you recommend that everyone learn PPC and use PPC as an Amazon seller? Fairly broad, but we have some fairly beginner level people in here as well.
Yeah. So, okay, here's the thing, nothing is 100% in life, right? So there are these brands that literally someone booked a call with me, doesn't run PPC at all, and is doing pretty well on Amazon, right? You have a few of those brands, but those are far and few between, right? They're not the majority. I think the reason the PPC platform is so important to use on Amazon is because it's kind of unique. If you compare Amazon advertising to Google AdWords, Facebook marketing, LinkedIn ads, all these different ad platforms, what's kind of unique is the direct correlation that you can get from a keyword, for a keyword rank from PPC on Amazon. You can see the sale in the dashboard. If you look at other ad platforms, it takes attribution. It's a nightmare. But with Amazon's platform, since everything's there and there's direct correlation that keyword driving, getting sales from keywords contributes to organic rank because it contributes to the two factors: conversion rate history, sales velocity history. And so that's the big reason why PPC is so important. And it's such a big driver of not only keyword rank, that's the main thing, man, keyword rank. And it's still to this day, sponsored products, keyword targeting is still really the lion's share of it. Sponsored brands video, sponsored display. I consider those add-ons once you become more of a brand, I guess. But really, sponsored products, keyword targeting, when it comes to rank, is the best one. And, it's fairly efficient. You have people launch on Amazon where they do the SFB rebates, and, there's even like black add to carts, which is a bit more against TOS. And there's all these different things that you can do. But I have students that just launch with PPC, and it's fairly efficient for them if you do the right product research. And it simplifies the model, because then you only have one piece of the business. SFB rebates can be a bit more technical, take more time or whatever. So it simplifies the business, and it contributes to the overall growth of the business. And it's only going to get more important as Amazon, continues to roll out new features. For sponsored display is going to be a big one this year, we're seeing. So, yeah, man, I've seen it over and over again where the contribution to keyword rank it's bar none, man.
Yeah, well said, Sean. From my experience, when I started this travelization business, the maps, I was basically learning everything myself. But at some point, I was like, okay, I can't keep up with the pace of change and ways to optimize things. So I wanted to pick your brain on the differences between overall your thoughts on self-taught PPC versus using a tool versus hiring an agency.
Yeah, that is like, so I've been in the game, for 5.5 years, and your boy's been like doing sales calls. I've done hundreds of sales calls with brands over the past 5.5 years. And man, like I've talked to so many people and learned so much stuff. So it's like self-taught versus agency versus like a tool, like a software, right? And I would consider self-taught. Would that include a course or no course, the self-taught route?
I'd say including a course. Yeah.
Including a course. Yeah. I think generally the general rule of thumb should be that if Amazon is going to be your primary source of income, then you should learn Amazon advertising. There are situations where people don't have to learn it. Like I have a client that I work with. I've been with for like 4 years, and they're a huge brand now. And, he found me and I took over, but he got lucky with me. Like I've talked to so many Amazon sellers. The biggest mistake is they hand it off too early. You can't manage what you don't know. You know what I mean? So like if you don't know PPC, then you can't manage a team member. You can't manage an agency. You can't manage a tool, man. You can't manage a tool. And I think a lot of people hand it off early is because they get overwhelmed with it. And then once they start to scale, that's another thing. Like they start getting sidetracked with like launches and inventory management. And then the optimization gets neglected. So they try to hand it off. You have to stay on it. So I think you have to learn it in the beginning before you can hand it off, because you can't manage what you don't know. And Amazon advertising it can get quite technical, but you should know that if you plan on it being like a big source of your income. A good example is I have a student in my program. When he joined, he was doing like 2 million a month. He's doing like 7 million a month now. And guess what? He still like does the strategic PPC. Like he hires people to do like the systems, but he works on the innovation. But that's the big one. So you should learn it in the beginning. I recommend getting a good mentor, in that area. Yeah. Oh, what are you saying, Kaylin? Oh, he
was just moving around there. I just muted them. Sorry.
Oh yeah. He's just a loud mover. No, I'm just joking. No, but yeah. So, you can hand it off to a tool. You can hand it off, but everybody's like, I got to get rid of PPC and automate it. And a lot of people get really infatuated with the AI and the automated tools. But honestly, man, like, I have like super smart students who've done testing with like AI versus like rule-based softwares. And there's big differences in how they optimize things. And I have talked to quite a few clients where the automated ones doesn't do well for them, to be honest. So learn it. I recommend learning it yourself, man. Just enjoy it. And then you can hand it off. But that's probably the best way to go, I think.
So Sean, to continue on this topic, if someone's at the stage when they're ready to hand it off to an agency, how to distinguish between good and bad ones, what to expect from them, and how to make the right decision there.
For agencies?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a tough one, dude. Because I know some of the smartest people that get burned by agencies. Like I'll talk to people and they're wicked smart and they get burned by agencies, dude. It's crazy. Agencies and humans, they're very good at talking. You know what I mean? They're very good at talking. I just would look at like, you have to know how to assess character. That's like understanding humans and stuff. I would say with Amazon businesses, you just sit at a desk all day. And so your human interaction isn't, the most. And so when, you get on a phone call with a charismatic salesperson, you're just like, wow, this is cool, So, because it's a very introverted business, to be honest, when you think about it. So I would look at just, you need to ask the right questions, man. Like when I do sales, it's all about asking questions. So I think that it's about asking having a set of questions that you can ask them. But then again, on the other hand, when I do sales, I let people ask me questions at the end of it. But I think it's like when you're on a call with agencies and you talk to them, you can tell whether or not they're good at what they do. But then again, you can't, because a lot of people are really smart at talking a big game. And then, so that's a hard one, man. How do you find a good agency? I think referral is probably a really good one, to be honest. A lot of people I work with, like I'll refer to people. You have to trust people. That's a tough one, dude. That's a tough one. Like how to find it cold.
Or also, maybe that's going to be easier to answer. How do you determine if they're good when you start working with them? How long would you give them to prove that they delivered good results? Because what I kept hearing from different agencies is they need at least 3 to 4 months to optimize everything. And in those 3 to 4 months, you can either make it or break it,
Yeah. I think I kind of do, in my agency days, I had a larger agency at one time, and we kind of did the 3-month rule. But like we would always say, like within the first few weeks, you should see some type of results, because there should be, like, generally, if your account is under optimized, like you haven't done search term reports, or they feel like they're going to launch new campaigns, it shouldn't take more than a week or two to start seeing some type of result. So there's one of two ways to go when it comes to working with an agency, or like if I were to take on somebody's account, there's really one of two ways. Like, how do I cut ACoS? And then how do I do keyword expansion? And it's really like 2 different phases. You can't really do them together, because when you launch new campaigns, you enter a new testing cycle, which generally increases ACoS and spend. So like, I would say like, hey, for the first few weeks, we're going to focus on lowering ACoS, and they need to show you ways that they're doing it. So like, for example, if they cut like bleeding keywords, they can send you the file of like the projected, bleeding cuts. So I don't think it takes 3 months, to be honest. I think it takes like a few weeks to start seeing movement pretty quickly on Amazon. If you're under optimized, man, it's only a few weeks, man, maybe a month. But 3 months, and then they'll say like, okay, if they ever tell you this, like, don't work with them, dude. Because Amazon, they do this too all the time, dude. Like if they say like, we need to gather data and you've already got campaigns running. No, you've already got data. So you don't need to gather data, dude. Right. Amazon says that so much, and it like, I don't know, man, riles me up a little bit, but like, yeah. So that's one thing. I don't think it takes 3 months. I understand the 3 month. We do the 3-month thing too, like to see the growth, but there should be within the first few weeks some type of movement in either cutting ACoS and spend or expansion. They should go one of 2 ways, because that's how we do it. Like we assess whether or not the client wants to cut the ACoS, or they're like, hey, I want more sales. The agency should weigh which way you're leaning on that, and then be like, okay, so for the first few weeks, we're going to optimize bids because you really want to constrict ACoS. And then once we feel like we got things, 5% below our target ACoS, then we'll do an expansion campaigns that will inflate the ACoS to about break even or slightly above our goal. But the goal there is to increase sales. So, or vice versa. If they lean towards sales, be like, hey, give us a, 10% leeway because we're going to be launching new campaigns. So it might go up by 10 points across the account, but that's because we're going through a new testing cycle on keywords. Yeah. That's kind of how I would approach it. Yeah.
That's why, understanding PPC to begin with is only going to help you find a better agency, because then you don't have to take into consideration them being too salesy because you know what you're talking about. But also when you're looking at results and looking at the data after the changes that they've done, you know what you're looking at, right? So you can see those changes right away. Where if someone hands off too early, you don't know what's good and you don't know what's bad at the end of the day, right?
Yeah, dude. People have been burned. Smart big brands have been burned by people, man. It's part of the game.
Absolutely. Cool, man. So the rest of the questions they definitely seem more strategy based. So first one here was in terms of like your launch strategy when it comes to PPC, what does that look like?
Yeah. So it depends. If you're doing just PPC, the way that we kind of do it is we do really like, hold on, there's 5 campaigns, 5 manual campaigns. So you've got 5 manual campaigns. Manual campaign number 1 is an exact match, top of search targeting, 600%. We kind of consider those like giveaways because usually they're going to be more expensive, but generally the conversion rate for top of search is exponentially higher than the conversion rate on a regular campaign or campaign targeting product pages. So we like to use that one for like to help with ranking keywords because it increases like sales velocity and conversion rate as well. Keep in mind, when you do 600%, you need to divide your starting bid by 7, because if you don't, then you will spend a lot of money on some clicks. You'll be just, Amazon's going to love you for that. So that's the first campaign, exact top of search. The second, and how, what keywords? Honestly, it's your most relevant keywords. Maybe like 20 keywords. I'm not going to lie. I like to go deep. Like I just did a launch. I did like 450 keywords because I'm a long tail guy. I like the short and the long. I like to go for and they're super relevant too. I don't do irrelevant stuff. These are just long tail, 5, 6 keyword phrases because I'm an SEO guy. I'm just a keyword nerd. So I knew that I wanted to really get some keywords out there. So, but generally my students and, if you want to keep it simple, top 20 most relevant keywords, something like that. And if you want to add on some longer tail, it doesn't hurt because the cost per click is going to be better. Conversion rate's better as well. And I will say this, if you launch in so like if you launch in a more niche product where it's like lower volume, you're not going to have a large keyword set, right? So 20 to 50 keywords is great, but I just launched a premium product in a really competitive marketplace. So, 450 keywords is like nothing. You know what I mean? Like it's different. Keyword sets range by the search volume of that specific product set. It's always something to keep in mind. That's why I knew I had to do keyword research because that's a huge variable to look at. So that's the first campaign. The next 3 campaigns, you would just take those top 20 keywords that you put in top of search and you would do a regular exact, a regular phrase, and a regular broad, just a regular one. And that's because you're going to have 2 exact campaigns, but one of them, the goal is to get all your traffic to top of search. And the other one is going to split, between product pages, rest of search, and top of search. So, that way you can get, variable traffic or variation of traffic. And then phrase and broad does the same thing. And it does additional keyword research, right? So seeding keywords. And then the last one is product targeting. Keep in mind, guys, with product targeting, so generally what we're seeing is that product targeting is more expensive than keyword targeting. So when you're doing product targeting, even the suggested bids have been higher when Amazon suggests it. So I recommend doing a lower bid with the product targeting because it's also a broad match as well, the ASIN targeting. So it's not as narrow and the suggested bids are a lot higher. So just be conservative with your bids there. That's what we do, man. We don't do auto campaigns at all. Actually was just on a call with my students today, and one of them works with a pretty well-known agency, and we were just like, we don't use auto campaigns anymore because they suck, man. I mean, there's really no buts about it. 8 out of 10 times they suck, 2 out of 10, you're like, oh, great. But 8 out of 10, they're bad. They just high A costs, and they don't really, honestly, they don't discover much more than what you can do with the tools that you have, and in the early days, you're just trying to rank for the keywords that you're, and you want to keep it and don't do sponsored brands, don't do sponsored brands video, don't do sponsored display, because there's no studies supporting that those contribute to keyword rank. Those come later,
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Cool. Next question here. What's the best bid strategy for size variations of the same product? Only bid on the best selling variation or bid on all of them?
Yeah. This is a really good question. So like, large, extra large, small, medium, all those things. We generally bid on the way we do it. Like if we were doing an audit on a client who had like a bunch of variations, download the 30-day business report and just look at the sales and we would just bid on the top variations, because we've done tests on like all the variations, and we wasted a lot of money doing that. Luckily it was sanctioned by the client, so that was good. But then I didn't end up working with them, so maybe it was bad. That'll get you dropped. But but it was all good, man. It's the business. So long story short, what ends up happening is like the reason we like to bid on the top selling variation is because if you bid on all of them, you just end up like the other ones, the poor performers will have like smaller traffic volume, and it'll just be high ACoS. It doesn't help at all. So just do your top sellers, man. You're going to waste a lot of money if you go after those other ones. But what you can do if you want, one thing you could do that's a little unique is like, let's say you got large, that's the best seller, and you bid on like all the keywords, like all the keywords that you would bid on. And then you have variation specific, like XXL, small, then you could bid on variation specific keywords. That I would recommend doing, but I wouldn't recommend bidding on like the general keywords for those.
Makes sense. Just for the top sellers. No, that totally makes sense. Cool. Next question here. When optimizing campaigns, what are the things that you monitor and iterate? There's a couple more probes here. Are there any specific targeted or strategies that you can share for campaign optimization? Let's just answer the first question first, then we'll go to the second one after that. So it was, again, when optimizing campaigns, what are the things that you monitor and iterate?
So yeah, when optimizing campaigns, what I look for, so ACoS, okay. So when optimizing campaigns, what do I look for and what do I iterate? What I look for, like if I optimize a campaign, let's say I cut bleeding keywords, like what I'm looking for is like lower spend, right? From those campaigns and those keywords. I don't look for ACoS for like a week, just because like spend is attributed more real time. And so I call it a leading indicator. So like if my spend goes down, it's a leading indicator that potentially my ACoS will go down as well. So like you're looking for like the data that you can look at like beforehand so that you can analyze stuff later as well. So when I lower bids, that's what I look for. And then in terms of iteration, I just make changes. Like the big thing about it is when you optimize campaigns, you can't do too many things at once. You need to apply one methodology to a group, and you need to not touch that group for like a few days. You know what I mean? If you're like touching things every day and you're not monitoring what you're touching. So that's the big thing, is variable control when it comes to optimizing campaigns. So I'll just like optimize, and then I'll look for, if I'm trying to decrease ACoS, I look for spend decreases. And then after a week, I'll look for kind of like, or a few, about a week, I'll look for decreases in ACoS. And then, or vice versa. Maybe I increase bids and I'll look for those. But you just look for increase in spend for like, if let's say you have a low ACoS keyword and you increase the bid, look for spend. That'll be a leading indicator. And then after a few days, sales might go up. But those are the big things you're looking for, is just traffic changes. But you can't make too many changes at once, man. And you have to know what systems you're using. Because a lot of people, they do random acts of optimization where they just make these random changes and they don't know what they've done. And so they can't track what's going on,
Yeah, for sure.
Scientific method,
Absolutely. To kind of probe off that, are there any specific strategies that you can share for campaign optimization? What it sounds like is it really is dependent on how things are moving and the metrics are moving. There's probably different strategies, but anything off the top of your head that's just like a common strategy for campaign optimization that you can share with the squad?
Cutting bleeders is kind of the most common one. So it's like what we do is 8 clicks or more, and then we decrease it to 75% of the cost per click. That's what we do. If it's 8 clicks or more, then we multiply it by 0.75 of the CPC. That one's a pretty good one. And doing that one pretty frequently is good. And unless you're a higher price product, if you're like maybe 50 or above or 60 or above or something like that, you might have to increase those thresholds because your conversion rate's a lot lower generally with higher price products. But when you're in those like consumer products, usually 8 clicks or more is good. I don't recommend using PPC conversion rate because it's kind of this weird, like if your product's doing well, then it's like 4 clicks. But if your product's doing crappy, then it's like 12 clicks, but it's going to do even crappier if you let it go to 12 clicks. So it's like this, like hole of death, I call it, when it comes to that. Because people will say like, use the PPC conversion rate. And I'm like, no, dude, like this is a bad move because you have a low conversion rate. It's going to make you spend so much more money, man. But in terms of optimization, 8 clicks, no sales is a big one. This is like a little more formulaic, but kind of the way we like do ACoS optimization is we just find the difference between our current and our target ACoS. And then we just like if it's 50% ACoS and our target's 30, we'll decrease it by 20%. So we just do all that in a spreadsheet. And then we also have like if it goes like too low. So like, let's say you have a keyword that's 300% and your goal is 20%. Well, when you run that formula, the output is negative, but we have like a formula that'll like account for that so that it doesn't completely kill it off. So, but you could just decrease it by like 10, 20% if it's too high for your ACoS. I think those are the big ones, and making sure you do those frequently, like cut bleeders twice a week minimum. I've even had students do it every day, but those are like accounts where the products aren't doing very well. We do it twice a week. And then the ACoS, low ACoS, we do that once a week. If you launch campaigns every 2 weeks. If you launch campaigns every week, you might have to do it twice a week. Those are the main ones, to be honest, because like some people say like increase keywords, and I think that can work sometimes if you need to, but Amazon likes to spend, so it's more about controlling costs than anything, to be honest.
Yeah.
Makes sense, Sean. So I see that you already covered part of this question, but the next one here is about tracking PPC. So what KPIs to use? So it basically says, what are the best PPC KPIs to follow per campaign, per keyword, or product target, and for the whole account? So how do you set those KPIs and what are they?
So that's a good question, man. So KPIs. So when I'm working with accounts, like I think of it as like like the ACoS is always your starting point. It's your starting point, right? So like we look at ACoS as like our starting point. Like it's like an if then statement. If our ACoS is too high, then why is it too high and how do we bring it down? So ACoS is a good starting point to like a deeper analysis, but then you have to look at why is the ACoS too high? So it could be too many keywords generating clicks and no sales, or high ACoS, one of the two. Usually it's a blend. And then you have to look at time frames. Now this is a big one, guys. A lot of people don't know the optimal time frames to look at data, right? It's like when you're thinking about like data as like a concept, it's like time is, and then like the quantity, but time is a huge one. What's the best time frame? I like 14 days, excluding the last 48 hours. So when I analyze data, that's what I generally look at. So if I'm optimizing bids, I like those. I wanted to kind of throw that in there because I didn't mention it in the campaign optimizations, but it's huge because some people look at their sales on a daily basis and they make decisions on a daily basis. Personally, I don't recommend that. And even 7 days, I think is a little too small. I think for super high volume products, I think 7 days might be okay. But we've tested like 7, 14, 21, 30, and 60. And we've kind of liked the 14-day time frame. So when you're making changes or you're even looking at data, I like to use 14 days, excluding 48 hours. I like that data set. You can play around with it if you want, but I think that's a good starting point. So that's what you're looking at when you're looking at ACoS, right? And then you just kind of have to look at why is the ACoS too high, man? I mean, it's pretty simple. The best way to do it is to download a bulk file and you can find it out that way. Cause like, I think what most people do is they use Campaign Manager and they filter by like their highest ACoS campaign. But you have to realize that like a campaign is just, it's just like a representation of a bunch of constituents, which are keywords. in my head, campaigns don't really matter that much. It's because what matters most is what constitutes the campaign, which is the keywords and the ASINs. So if you're like more advanced, you can download a bulk file and look at those constituents. But unfortunately, with the campaign manager, you have to like click on each one and all that stuff. So when it comes to like what to look at, KPIs, I like to look at the individual constituents, and that includes, and that would be done in a spreadsheet, not necessarily in Seller Central. But if you're limited by just using the Seller Central filter, a lot of people, they'll look at like last 14 days and they'll look at the high ACoS ones. Then they'll click on each one. They'll find out which keywords are high, and then they'll decrease those. I think that's a good, like, if you're small and you're new to Amazon, that's a good way to kind of start out and cut your teeth. But when you start, getting like more SKUs and stuff, you're going to have to like look into like spreadsheets, bulk file spreadsheets, because that'll just help you with like more granular work, I think. But yeah, so that's kind of, I don't know. Did I answer that one good?
I think so. Yeah, ACoS is pretty popular, but another popular opinion I keep hearing is for some products, it doesn't make sense to look at ACoS only, because a lot of their sales are organic, and obviously PPC helps with that. So they look more on TACoS, so total advertising cost of spend, because to them, in total, let's say if they spend 10% of their revenue on advertising, they consider that to be a success. Would you agree with that statement?
Yeah, dude, we do that as well. I mean, I didn't totally slip my mind, but we like even at this moment, like one of the accounts I work with, we don't spend more than 8% of total revenue on ads. So TACoS is huge because that's a good point, Andre. You make a really good point, because I have been in situations where a keyword has a super low ACoS, and then people were just like, keep spending money, but there's no growth organically. So what ends up happening is it's a super low ACoS, but it just eats into organic sales. So you're totally right on that one. I think that would be something to look at. I call it the point of diminishing return for keywords. There's like a point of diminishing return where it doesn't contribute to your organic, even if it's low ACoS, and it just eats into it. And it ends up, you have a low ACoS, but your profit's lower. So we limit ad spend. It's something that people should look at as their TACoS. Their TACoS is to like, look at like, what does that number look like for you? Industry averages are 8 to 10%. From my experience, 8 to 10%. Anything above 10% is considered pretty aggressive. Anything below 8% is considered pretty conservative. In the beginning, when you're selling on Amazon, it's going to be way higher than that. But you maybe should measure that and see it trail over time. And it's just spend divided by total revenue. Yeah, that's a good one, Andre. Thanks for mentioning that, because I totally missed that.
Of course, Sean. So ACoS, TACoS, anything else that we're missing in terms of things that people should track?
Probably, you could track the conversion rate of like your top keywords. I know a lot of people like to track conversion rate. The only tricky part with conversion rates is like, even with ACoS, is like the significance of the data. And ACoS is, not necessarily because of CPC. Some people track conversion rate. Honestly, I don't do a lot of conversion rate tracking. CPC is another one to look at, actually. So like, because there are instances where you can overpay in the marketplace. So like, you might be thinking like, man, I just should bid the highest for this keyword so that I can beat everybody. But you could be overpaying for a click because you are bidding the highest, and you might be able to get, a similar amount of traffic comparable for a cheaper cost. So CPC, when we look at like bringing down ACoS, CPC is another thing that we look at. Like we're looking to drive that down, to be honest. Spend, CPC is another one we like to look at. So the impressions and clicks as well. So like if you increase something, look for an increase in impressions and clicks, decrease something, decrease in impressions and clicks. So you're looking at like, and those will happen a bit real time. Impressions, clicks. I'm trying to think. ACoS, orders. Well, yeah. Look at sales, spend. Yeah. And then I do recommend measuring your spend per product. which you'll need to do. I mean, if you guys are early on, you maybe only have 1 or 2 products, it's a lot easier to measure, but you're going to want to know how to measure like spend per product and ACoS per product as well. So when it comes to KPIs, Amazon only gives you account level information. So, it's your responsibility to figure out like, how do I segment this data and look at my ACoS at a product level as well, versus just like Seller Central stuff.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Yeah.
Next question here. If someone is looking to scale with PPC, what are the top 3 things that someone could literally do today to make an impact on scaling?
Scale. Top 3 things. The first one is learn bulk files, man. That's the first one. The number one is to learn bulk files, learn spreadsheets, get familiar with those. That's pretty much the number one, to be honest, when it comes to scaling, because it allows you to create campaigns. And dude, you can create you can have like developers create macros for Google Sheets and then create macros for Excel. There's a lot of stuff you can do there. It's almost like having a software, to be honest. So that's a big one. And even if you don't get into the macros, you can have a team member do it. Bulk files is number one. Top 3 things to scale PPC. Oh man. Number 2 is continued keyword expansion. So like you need to continue to add on keywords and you have to deduplicate against your keyword sets. So, we usually recommend a cadence of every like 2 weeks for new campaigns. For like established products, pulling search terms, harvesting search terms, using different keyword research methods, and then deduplicating against your existing keyword set. A lot of people don't do that. A lot of people end up bidding on, like, you'll have like spatula, right? Spatula. And then you go into your search term report and spatula is there as a search term. Well, if you don't deduplicate, you'll end up bidding on it again. And then guess what happens? You end up overspending, because when you test a new keyword, generally ACoS is higher since it's not optimized, and you end up just wasting money because you're already bidding on that one and it's optimized. So when you do keyword expansion, which you should do in the beginning, you should probably do it like, you can pull search terms maybe every few days or every week and test new keywords and expand. But when you're more established or your product's more established in the market, usually every other week, we like to use search terms, suggested keywords, other tools, Helium 10, merchant words, but remember to deduplicate against that keyword set, man. And that's a big one, because a lot of people stop keyword expansion. Dude, I'll be talking to people, man. And I'm just like, they'll be like, I only have like 30 keywords. And I'm like, they're doing pretty well. I'm like, you have 30 keywords? I was like, dude, we could do a lot with you. So, people think that those 20 keywords are the ones that are going to like take them to the moon. They're starters. But like I have products, like I have a SKU. It's one SKU. It does like 1.6 million, one SKU, and it's got 10,000 keywords it converts for. Right. So, so you have to see that keyword set expands over time. And then number 3, dude, I don't know if I have a number 3. I think number 1 and number 2 are good. I think it fills in the number 3. You know what I'm saying?
Fair enough.
Big enough.
I'm curious. It sounds like you're obviously working with some massive brands that are getting into competitive niches. A lot of the beginners, myself, for example, not necessarily a beginner, but I don't typically launch like very competitive products.
Yeah.
Reason being, it's costly. Like you need a lot of marketing spend to do that. Would you say that is like the contributing factor to be able to actually compete, is purely just marketing spend to get into a competitive niche?
Yeah, dude, I'm not going to lie, man. I work with one guy and I don't understand him. I don't know how his brain works. There are just some people that you're just like, I don't know how you do this. Cause we launched in these really competitive space, and the guy just we launched into like a super competitive space, and our ACoS is like 25% after like the first 3 days. Yeah. It's crazy, dude. So, he's kind of like the exception to the rule, when it comes to selling on Amazon. Different breed, in my opinion. So, when it comes to competitive markets, you really have to man, that's tough, because he has a big company and like he does outside stuff too as well. Cause honestly, man, if you're just pure Amazon brand, it's probably not even worth it unless you're willing to like do some stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like supplements, those really hard ones, people do really well in them. Like, there's like this saying that like all the 8-figure sellers are in supplements, right? But the stuff that they're willing to do to get there is different than maybe the stuff you're willing to do. Cause they take a lot of risk when it comes to terms of service, a lot of risk. And they're willing to take that risk, man. Big risk, big reward. But, a more sustainable model is like the singles model, where like you're just trying to like launch singles and then maybe you'll be a home run. That's a more like sustainable model, but having good product research methodology. So it's marketing spend is a big part of it, man. I really think it is. And kind of, what you're, some of those softwares out there can do some crazy stuff,
Absolutely, man. No, I appreciate it. It's just kind of a thought that rolled off my mind. Next question here. Which campaigns are best to run if you just want to sell through inventory as soon as possible? For example, want to potentially try to liquidate your inventory. You no longer want to sell. Is there any specific campaigns? Would it just kind of be similar to like product, like in your brand campaigns almost?
I would honestly just decrease the price and not run ads, because we've done that before and it doesn't do well. Like don't use PPC to liquidate inventory, because if it's slow moving inventory, then it's going to be slow moving on PPC and you're going to waste money. So you might as well decrease the price and increase the velocity, get it out the door, to be honest. Some people do like a catch-all campaign. It's an auto campaign where it's a super low bid and they just put all their products in there. But it's a great looking campaign, but it doesn't push velocity, So honestly, like price would be the better approach to it.
Yeah, no, makes sense.
Good point.
I had one more question, and this kind of stemmed from an automation software that I saw, but there was this thing, and correct me if I'm wrong, you probably know the terminology better than me. I think it's called day parting, and it's kind of like setting up your campaigns to start at a specific time and at a specific time. Is that something that you can do manually, or would that need to be through an automation tool?
You can do it manually, dude. I did like 2 or 3 years ago, I did like 4 day parting experiments on clients. And what we saw was a decrease in spend, but we didn't see an improvement in ACoS at all. Cause like the goal of it is to have the ads run during your highest converting times. So like the hypothesis is that like, hey, if we run it during these times, ACoS is going to be lower, conversion rates better. We didn't see that. And we had them do like pretty granular work on like the specific hours. So, I mean, dude, it's been years since I ran those tests. So, and you can do it in bulk file. So what you would do is you would just download the bulk file and then change the campaign status from enabled to pause. And then you would go pause to enabled. So that's what you would do there. You could do it in Seller Central too, but like if you're doing it for specific SKUs, you would want to do it in the bulk file, but you could do it in Seller Central. There's no like tool. I know there's tools that do it now. I don't know if I'll ever do it. Cause I mean, I'd have to see a strong case study for it, because I know AdWords guys do it and stuff, but I think for me, it would be maybe to control spend, but I haven't seen like results on that end. But you can do it in the bulk file on Seller Central. You just have to like do it manually and then just make sure it's there and then just reverse it back.
Yeah, makes sense.